Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues, and welcome again to today's UNSDG Global Shared Services informational webinar session, which is on UN mobility of UN System Booking Hub, one of the key global shared services endorsed by the BIG, which has an intensive uptake and usage in the field for basically scaling the carpooling, vehicle management, as well as the transport. Today, we're joined by our excellent speakers from WFP, which is the leading entity behind this amazing service, the UN mobility of the UN System Booking Hub. And we will hear some inspirational, basically, speech and opening from our colleague, Sarah Adam, Director of the Management Services Division of WFP, and followed by the rest of the colleagues that will be introduced by Sarah, and who will take us through the presentation, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions and answers after the presentation is over. So with that, let me hand over the session over to Sarah, and then we'll come back to you with the Q&A part as well. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Samir, for that introductory, and really good morning, good afternoon, and really welcome everybody to this session. And I also welcome this, again, DCO-sponsored webinar on the UN systems of mobility, part of the webinar of the GSS, of course, of Global Shared Services. Let me first begin by expressing first my sincere thanks to our colleagues in DCO, who've done an excellent job in their leadership in advancing the UN system-wide reform and innovation. And I think not enough credit it can be given to the work that they've been doing on that. So very much appreciated it. Their support has been instrumental really in driving forward shared services that really deliver impact to the wider UN. I also want to welcome all of you colleagues from across the UN entities. I see there's a big turnout, and I understand, Zamir, if you haven't mentioned it, that the session will be recorded. So really, whoever's connected today, really a great pleasure to be meeting you virtually. Your interest and engagement in the UN system mobility really reflects a shared commitment in transforming how we move, collaborate, and deliver across the entire UN system. So before I get into some bit of details, it's also a pleasure to introduce you to two of my colleagues from WFP who are leading really this transformation. Alexandra Bianchini, who is the Chief of Shared Services and Business Development, whose really strategic leadership has shaped the Global Shared Services portfolio. And secondly, Stefano Nicolai, Head of the UN System Mobility, leading the fastest growing, as Zamir said, the most dynamic global shared services within the UN System Booking Hub, really ecosystem. So really, again, a great pleasure to be seeing you all. Many profiles here, but very much looking to be spending the next hour or so with you. Today's discussion is very much anchored in one of the UN system's most impactful innovations on the global shared services that is really driving the UN efficiency agenda. Indeed, a real example of the UN reform clearly in action. And as some of you may know, the hub was originally established in 2017 internally for the World Food Programme to manage its own guest houses. It was then open to the wider UN partners to manage their guest houses, and gradually really expand to include services lines such as aviation, mobility, medical, and other field services, and numerous partners across the board. It has since evolved into a multifunctional system-wide solution, receiving really strong institutional endorsement. It has been presented to the HLCM meetings on 4 occasions, starting in 2019 all the way to 2024. It has been endorsed by the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed on that in September 2019, really becoming UN-wide, and really showcased UN. It was being showcased at the UN Assembly in 2019 as a result of that endorsement to really major stakeholders. So in 2023, it was recognized also by the BIG as one of the top 5 priority global shared services really to be scaled up. And as you can see actually on this slide, it represents today the largest UN global service platform for the humanitarian and development community to access and manage field services and enable coordinated emergency responses. It serves more than 6 million customers requests to date with almost 21, not almost, actually 21 partnering UN entities in 121 countries, generating more than 16 million in 2024 alone. So that really just shows you the scale of this collaboration across the UN system. I'm also pleased to let you know that we have now added a further service line in which has really become a game changer with a huge potential in terms of generating significant and further efficiencies in the UN. That's the UN system online auction, which really turns disposal into a strategic advantage, recovering value, high cost recovery, quick release of efficiency space, and in term facility efficiency space, and reinforce the community in terms of efficiencies and sustainability for operations globally. So colleagues, really just wanted to now really turn back to the focus of today, which is the webinar on the UN systems mobility, often referred to the Uber of the UN. Operational in 115 countries, it really served it has already served 5.5 million passenger requests and really manages the largest interagency fleet in the UN with over 9,000 vehicles across 21 entities, as I mentioned earlier on. It's the only end-to-end UN-wide solution for interagency, carpooling, ride-sharing, and really a flagship global shared services within the UN system and the UN booking hub. So really an area that is great to be collaborating on this particular space. This service is really transformational, moving us really from the very manual systems in the digital solutions, and you'll be hearing more from Alessandra and Stefano later on, and now really introducing the first UN AI-powered solution for fleet optimization. In 2024 alone, the UN mobility generated over $6 million in savings through process automation and increased ride sharing and carpooling, whilst really reducing the CO2 emission. And so in conclusion, and really a call to action and transition is that in terms of when we talk about carpooling and car sharing and mobility, I should say, is really more than just a transport solution. It really is a strategic enabler of the UN in terms of sustainability and efficiency. The current financial and budgetary environmental and really implores us with shrinking funding, implores us to demonstrate ambition and explore all opportunities to identify efficiencies in a way to invite all UN agencies to join us, those that have already joined, but really expanding that and scaling the UN so that we can bring together this single UN solution as we move forward, as I mentioned earlier on, but just really wanted to reiterate, many of you are contributing to it already in terms of maximizing financial gains through digital transformation, streamline and scale up the UN carpooling system to unlock further inefficiencies, and as I mentioned, in terms of reducing CO2 emission, which is critical. So let me take a pause here now, and I'm pleased to really hand it over to Alessandra and Stefano, who will guide you through this journey and opportunity of the UN system. I'll be staying online for a while, and then hopefully we'll be able to take some questions once we actually complete the presentation. So without further ado, Alessandra and Stefano, over to you.
Sarah, thank you very much, and of course for that introduction of UN system mobility, and also Zamir, as always, many thanks for your support. I know you've been really advocating UN system mobility from the very start with your colleagues, with your DCO colleagues in New York. So we're really appreciative of all the support we've been getting from your end in advancing UN system mobility. And of course, I'm glad to say that you've managed to see the rapid progress and scale up of the solution. So, and of course, thank you, colleagues online, for your interest in this global shared service. Now, As Sarah was saying, yes, often referred to as the Uber of the UN. We define ourselves as the passenger transportation of the UN system booking hub. Of course, by saying that we are the Uber of the UN, our audience immediately understands the type of service that we're into. So we're into transporting UN staff, passengers from A to B using light, armored electric vehicles, or also through private hire. The solution, our solution as a global shared service, is ready for immediate scale up. And of course, now the huge opportunity for the UN system is to leverage UN system mobility, which is used by so many partners around the world. And really, we are now as Sarah was saying, the UN-wide carpooling and ride-sharing solution. So really unlocking further efficiencies by having agencies and UN entities that already use us to transform their passenger transportation. They use it to work together as one UN. And of course, as a global shared service, we simplify and we create efficiencies for all our stakeholders. So from fleet managers, of course, who have better visibility of their drivers and their vehicles and their movements, and can better manage their daily operations, to drivers who can really have all the information that they require on the mobile app. They can see the updated trips that they have to perform. They can engage directly with the passenger. So the life of drivers has also been simplified significantly. And then, of course, management can look at dashboards and really understand how to best scale up best practices within their operations. Last but not least, and this is why we also like to say that we're a little bit like the Uber of the UN, passengers have really a different customer experience now. You can book your trip using your mobile phone. Again, you know the details of the driver that is picking you up and so forth. So really a complete digital revolution when it comes to passenger transportation within the UN. And on this slide, you see some of our key enablers that are really advancing all the efficiencies that we are generating through the solution. So we have an AI-powered fleet optimizer, which looks at the data from UN system mobility to really optimize ride sharing and carpooling and fleet optimization. Ride sharing, of course, getting people to travel together and reducing trips. We have shuttle services that we're using already in a number of countries, which in a way really maximize ride sharing, because when a route becomes a common route for many agencies, then a shuttle becomes the way forward. Carpooling, as I said, this interagency carpooling, agencies supporting each other globally now. And I'm very, very pleased to say, as most of our partners would know by now, that we've expanded carpooling to include the use of armored vehicles. This was a really strong request from the field, and we're glad to say that we can now do carpooling with armored vehicles, and we're rolling out this new important initiative. And of course, we are transitioning towards a greener fleet to the use of electric vehicles, particularly when we do carpooling when possible. Some numbers of where we got today. So pleased to say, of course, that we have the largest UN interagency operating fleet. So we have more than 9,500 vehicles from 21 UN entities, some with global agreements, some with local partnerships, but we have 21 UN entities around the world, and more than 9,500 vehicles managed through the solution every day, and nearly 7,000 drivers. And as Sarah mentioned at the very beginning, we have served to date 5.5 million clients' requests, 2 million just last year. Our geographical reach now is 115 countries, and this has really happened in a very short period of time. Just a few years, we've managed to go from that single location in Nigeria to 115 countries and more than 1,000 locations. And as a client-centric solution, again, an Uber-type element to our GSS is that we run customer satisfaction surveys every year, and I'm glad to say that the team led by Jada and Eva, who is here with me today, that score highly every year in supporting our customers. Of course, another element that we have for customer satisfaction is the instant feedback feature. So the passenger at the end of the trip on the mobile phone can leave feedback on the trip received. So this is to try and promote, of course, service excellence. And we have, as I said, 21 UN entities that globally or locally are using our solution throughout the world. So UN-wide carpooling solution, as this map here clearly shows. So what you see in blue here is the UN system mobility presence, and we are highlighting in green the countries where we have initiated interagency carpooling. So those countries where at OMT level, agencies have decided to support each other with passenger transportation. So on the right here, you see the journey of carpooling. Of course, at the beginning, the important thing to do was to really expand the service and have as many agencies as possible signed to join. And I'm pleased to say that we have more than 300 UN entities at the local level, of course, that are joined by signing our agreement in 53 countries. And now we are doing the more difficult part, let's say, of carpooling, which was trying to operationalize. We're trying to make sure that operations on the ground really support each other. Green carpooling, we are pioneering it, and we started doing so in Kenya with our partners with UNON. They have electric vehicles there, and we are using them to, and they're using them to provide transportation. So we like to say that this is green carpooling with electric vehicles, and armored vehicles I've already mentioned. We've now expanded to include armored vehicles. A turnkey solution. This is very important, and this is the reason why we have managed to scale up, and we continue to scale up UN system mobility so rapidly, is that really we offer to those who want to join us an end-to-end and a turnkey solution, meaning that the entire framework is ready to be adopted. And again, Eva, Jada, and the team, they make the process of adoption, onboarding, training, and so forth very simple and very smooth. So this has been, I must say, to date, the secret of our rapid scale up. Not only this complete framework, financial, legal framework ready, but also the change management activities and customer support from the team. So legal framework, we have the SLA and we have the carpooling service agreement, as I was saying, already signed by 300 local entities globally. We have the financial framework. This means that we have this important trip cost recovery model, which is make country specific, which really facilitates carpooling. We have digital capabilities, being a digital solution, of course, that make carpooling easier to happen between agencies. And now we also have this AI smart mobility to try and maximize ride sharing and carpooling, and then the change management support team end-to-end, as I said. We are really leading the way on the use of AI, also when it comes to passenger transportation. So we now have, we're now working and really leading the way on an AI powered solution for fleet optimization. So this AI optimizer, and we're working in partnership with Amazon Web Services on this. Of course, we're also partnering with Google through Google Maps that helps us with smart planning. But through the through AI, we can really use the data, the vast data that we have from UN system mobility, to try and maximize, to try and look at the opportunities that there are for ride sharing and carpooling. And eventually, of course, this leads to fleet optimization. And the other aspect of AI for UN system mobility is that we have recently launched for WFP. We've now rolled it out, or we're rolling it out to our partner UNICEF, and we're releasing it very soon to all our other partners, is an AI powered chatbot. It's almost like a 24/7 concierge service for customers, for customer support. And so this slide here depicts our journey. So we've gone from what you see on the left, when we were visiting at the beginning of our journey, when we were visiting our country offices, and we would often find a very lengthy manual and paper-based process, and we have transformed it into a complete end-to-end digital solution available on the web, of course, and on mobile phones. So this really recaps, I'm not going to go through this slide in details because this really recaps the journey there on some of the points that I've just highlighted. So by using UN System Mobility, the first thing that you will obtain for your operation is that you are transforming your internal delivery, so managing your own vehicles for your own passengers and drivers for your own passengers. Then you are allowed to maximize ride sharing because you have this better visibility of all the movements of your fleet, so you can really see where ride sharing can maximize, and soon this will also, of course, have this AI-powered element to it. The next step, of course, is that you join other agencies to operationalize carpooling, and then there is the greening element, supporting the transition towards green carpooling and greening the fleet. And last but not least, of course, fleet optimization, making sure that at the end of this project, we just making sure that, sorry, I was interrupted by something, making sure that at the end of this journey, you have the right sizing, you do the right sizing and right profiling of your fleet. The result of all the work that we do day in and day out together, of course, with our partners, because if UN System Mobility is where it is today, is because from the very first and early adopters to today, we all work together to generate these efficiencies. So this is the result really of the work done by all the partners that day in and day out use the solution. And pleased to say that on an aggregate basis, last year in 2024, we generated in excess of $8 million. And of course, there is an element there, an important and topical element of CO2 savings, which result from ride sharing and carpooling. And naturally, we see that with the full scale up, our ambition is to more than double these 2024 efficiency gains. Those efficiency gains they come from process automation, from ride sharing and carpooling, but those can be even larger when we start looking at other elements, such as, for example, the fuel reduction that the UN mobility data can give to your operations. This photo that you see here on the right is a photo that I actually took myself on a mission. It was a UN partner in West Africa, and basically they had this common room for drivers, and they were showing on the display all the upcoming trips, the data coming from UN System Mobility of all the upcoming trips from the drivers. And this increased accountability and visibility led to a significant, up to 50%, when I was talking to the fleet manager there, up to 50% of fuel saving. And then, of course, also there was increased productivity. In other words, there was better distribution of workload between the drivers. So of course, they were happier for the distribution of workload, but of course, they knew that the work was in a way being, there was accountability, of course, there. So very, very important. These are extra savings that we know that UN System Mobility can generate. We have launched initially for WFP this year, also for our partners UNICEF, and we're hoping to expand this initiative to other interested agencies. We launched the UN Mobility Driver Awards, really trying to reward and give credit to our drivers for the work that they do day in and day out, and to promote this culture of service excellence and, of course, also road safety. So this is a very important initiative that we would like as many partners as possible to join and do in the coming years. And yes, we have here just two testimonials from UNICEF and UNESCO. These are people, either focal points or in this case, a program officer and administration officer, giving their feedback on how UN System Mobility really has transformed the way they manage their operations. And the last thing I would like to say, of course, and going back to what Sarah was saying, it's great that we already have this large community of partners with all the numbers that I mentioned at the beginning. But of course, it would be great for anyone who's present here today to reach out to us if they know that they're not using this solution already, or if there are locations where the solution is not being used, they can reach us at the email address shown here. And then the team will make sure that we initiate discussions. And we often provide even a free trial of 1 month to locations for them to really assess firsthand the solution before joining us. So this leads me to the end of the presentation. I don't know if, Alessandra, there's anything you would like to add before I provide a quick, so I'll move to a quick demo of the solution. Just really 5-10 minutes, very high level, just to give you a look and feel for the UN System Booking Hub and for the mobility part of it. And maybe this is the best way for you to appreciate what it is that we offer. So this is the UN System Booking Hub ecosystem, of course, with all the services that we offer, because we started with accommodation, but now you can see a long list of services provided through the UN System Booking Hub. Now, the solution is available as in English and in French, on the mobile app, also available in Arabic, of course. And this area here is accessible through a single sign-on to all the UN email addresses. And then there is a separate section here with which you can see on the top right, the digital office. This is only for is a reserved area for dedicated personnel that have access to the back-end part of the solution. Now you can see one thing maybe I'd like to mention here is that we are also partnering with Jean Todt, the UN Special Envoy for Road Safety, given that we have such a large community of practice of drivers and fleet managers. Now, whatever I show you here, passengers can also do on their mobile phone, but basically booking a mobility trip is a very, very easy experience. You just click on Book Mobility. And then what the next screen shows that this is our press. And then all you have to do is select the country that you would like to book your trip in. Now I already have it open. So this is what you get, for example, if you have selected the island of Vanuatu in the city of Midgar, you get this intro page with details about that particular location, with information about how they offer the service, and you simply press request your booking. And here, if you've already used the service before, some of the fields are already filled in. You can select an airport trip, an in-town, out-of-town, or even that shuttle feature that I was mentioning earlier. You can add attachments, and you can simply put in your date and pick up location and drop off. We even added over the years and recurring booking if you know that you'll be doing that trip on a regular basis. So that is very, very simple. And once you send request booking, that there is an email notification that of course comes to you, and it also goes to the fleet manager. So it's as simple as that. And as I said, you can do it on the mobile phone. Now what I would like to show you is the digital office, the backend area of the solution. Okay. Okay, so this is what I would be seeing as a fleet manager. So I have all these tabs, and if I just show you the most important ones, here I have all my bookings that are coming to me, those that have not yet been processed and those that have been processed. And of course, I can use the forward feature. This is a digital element to facilitate carpooling. Then I have the mobility planner. So here, for example, on a specific day or week, I have complete visibility of all the, I have complete visibility of all the movements of all my vehicles, as you can see here on the left. Of course, color coded depending on whether it's a carpooling trip or whether it's a shuttle trip, for example, in dark green, or whether it's private hire here in pink. My mobility is where I can see all my drivers, and I can make them, for example, unavailable if they're unavailable during a period of time. And through a self-service feature, I can edit them. And similarly, I can see all my vehicles, and I can edit information about my vehicles. And in the same way that I've mentioned for the drivers, you can make them unavailable for a period of time. Going back to this main area here, we have the mobility logbook. So this is something that we're doing in digitalizing the process of going from a manual logbook to a digital logbook. So here you have all the information about the trips. And the next item I wanted to show you is the financials. So here on the financials, you have the cost recovery report. So if you are doing carpooling, so if you're providing services to other UN entities, here you have the breakdown of all the trips that you have provided. And of course, if you go to the summary tab, you can see all the agencies that you've supported, and you can create, with just one click, you can create an invoice. You can create a monthly invoice. So if you prefer, you can create a single invoice. The other important area for you to see is the country demand KPI. So this is the power of a digital solution, that you have access to data. So for all the locations in that particular country, you have the KPI. So number of trips provided, whether they were out of town, in town, ride share, carpooling, efficiency savings through ride sharing, and so forth. So this is really the power of the digital solution. Then we have, and one thing I wanted to show you here is a dashboard, an important dashboard that we developed following discussions with fleet managers from our partners, that gives you really a snapshot of how transportation is being used, and also how your vehicles and drivers are being used, the top drivers and top vehicle being used. And the last thing I'd like to show you is the customer satisfaction. So at the end of a trip, the driver leaves a feedback. And this is where the fleet manager can process all the feedback received, leading, of course, to service excellence. So this really, it was just a 5-10 minute demo of the solution. But of course, what we normally recommend is that if you're interested, the best thing to do is for you to try it even for 1 month in a free trial, and then you see what you can benefit and what you can get out of it.